In this video, I'm going to teach how we can solve equations containing decimals. Okay, so we have very similar steps for solving equations like this than we do of solving the regular types of equations. In fact, they're almost identical. I'll put a star next to the one different step. So step 1, this step is the same. We're going to use the distributive property. To eliminate the parentheses. That's step 1. Step 2. This is the new step, so I'm going to put a star right here. We're going to multiply both sides of the equation by a power of 10. Now, just to remind you, powers of 10 are things like 10, or 100, or 1,000, or something like that. The reason we're doing this is to clear the decimals. So what multiplying by the 10, 100, or 1,000 does is it gets rid of all the decimals. And finally, the last step is to solve the equation normally. Because once all of your decimals are gone, this just becomes a regular old problem that you can do, just like you would do before. Okay? So let's do some examples. So number 1, we're going to solve the following problem. Negative 0.75 plus y equals 0. Now, just for a change here, I'm going to show you that this one is actually so simple that we don't even need to multiply both sides of the equation by a power of 10. Just because dealing with the decimals is actually not too bad here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add 0.75 to both sides. If I do that, I end up with y equals 0.75, and we're done with the problem. So it's actually easier here just to proceed directly as you would, just because adding 0 to a decimal is pretty simple. Alright, let's try another one. C minus 6.8 equals negative 4.8. This problem is also pretty simple, okay, but perhaps you don't like dealing with decimals and you decide, I don't want to add a decimal to both sides, I'd rather get rid of the decimals. That's totally okay. All we do is we multiply both sides by 10 in this case. I'm going to multiply everything here by 10. Now let's see what happens. First of all, 10 times c is 10c. 10 times 6.8 is 68. And 10 times negative sorry, negative 4.8 is negative 48. And now we can just solve normally. So I can add 68 to both sides. Negative 48 plus 68 is 20. We get 10c equals 20. And now we divide both sides by 10. We get c equals 2. Not too bad, right? Let's try another one. We're going to solve the following equation. Negative 3y equals negative 0.63. So I'm going to get rid of the decimals again here. What I'm going to do, actually maybe for this one I won't get rid of the decimals, and for the next one I will. So what I'm going to do is solve it normally. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. Negative divided by negative is positive. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do 0.63 divided by 3. 3 goes into 6 twice. Sorry, I didn't mean to put the line there. 2 times 3 is 6. Subtract, we get 0, and bring down the 3. 3 goes into 3 once. 1 times 3 is 3. We get 0. So the answer is 0.21. So not too bad, as long as you're comfortable dividing a decimal by a number, right? That's the step that people have a hard time with. For the next one, I'm going to do a very similar problem, except I'm going to clear the decimals first. Okay, just to show you a different process. So for number 4, we're going to solve the following. 1.7 is equal to 0.5n. This time I'm going to multiply by 10 to clear the decimals. If I do that, 10 times 1.7 is 17, and 10 times 0.5n is 5n. And you'll notice that here I can just divide by 5 to get the variable by itself. I get 17 over 5, which is as reduced as that fraction gets. Okay, we're going to do a more advanced problem now, in which I actually highly recommend that we clear out the fractions here. Okay? So, let's write our problem down. We're going to solve the following. 3.1k minus 4 is equal to 0.5k plus 13.42. This is a tougher one, right? Because we have variables on both sides of our equation. I'm going to start by clearing the fraction out. So that means I'm going to multiply by a power of 10. But notice I can't multiply by 10 because the right decimal has 2 decimal places right here. So in order for me to get rid of those, I have to actually multiply everything by 100. Let's go ahead and distribute the 100. So first of all, 100 times 3.1, I move the decimal over twice, I get 310k. 100 times 4 is 400. 100 times 0.5, you move it over twice, you get 50k. And then 100 times 13.42 is 1342. And now we can solve normally. Remember, that means use subtraction to get the variables together, and I'm going to use addition to move the numbers together. I end up with 260k is equal to 1742. Now here I divide both sides by 260. I end up with k is equal to 1742 over 260. That is kind of a difficult fraction to reduce. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to see if 26 goes into both top and bottom, because 26 does go into the bottom. Let's see if 26 goes into the top. So if I take 1742 and I divide it by 26, see what I end up with. 26 goes into 17. Let's try 6 times. I end up with 18 here. Drop the 2. This actually goes in, let's see here, 7 times. 7 times 6 is 2. 18, it's exact. So actually, we end up getting 67 over 10. Or we can write our answer as 6.7. Either one is fine. Alright, I think we're ready to do one last problem. This time let's give it parentheses. Let's make this one where we have to do a little bit of work first. Okay. So the problem is 1.5 times x plus 1 minus 3 equals 0.2x minus 4. Now when I tell people to do these problems, I always suggest that we get rid of the parentheses first, and that's why that was step 1 when I wrote out the steps earlier. So we're going to start by distributing the 1.5 to both of these. 1.5 times x is 1.5x plus 1.5 times 1 is 1.5 minus 3. I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite everything else. Now, to clear out the decimals, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply everything by 10. If I do that, I get 15x plus 15 minus 30 equals 2x minus 40. Again, I just gave everything a 10. Combine my like terms, right? Positive 15 and negative 30 give us negative 15. We're going to get all the variables next to each other and all the numbers next to each other. I end up with 13x here equals negative 40 plus 15 is negative 25. So if I divide both sides by 13 here, I get x equals negative 25 over 13. That's as much as my answer reduces. Okay, hopefully the process was clear. Thank you very much for watching, and I wish you guys the best of luck.